Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Do I have a show for you today? Today, on episode 7 of BC Spirits, we're tasting barrel-aged gins. And surprisingly enough, if you've heard me say this once or twice in the episodes, once you start looking for things, things start appearing. And that is no exception to this episode. We have 14, count them, 14 barrel-aged gins from BC. I know I've missed a couple. It is insane how many we have in BC right now. Some are special releases, some are always on the shelves. But I collected 14 for you, ranging from a Cab Sav aged one all the way through to an Akvavit, which I am throwing that in with gin because it's our aromatized spirit, and everything in between. So, barrel-aged gins became popular about 10 years ago. I would say probably the Ransom Old Tom from Portland was sort of the first one that sort of kicked off the whole barrel aging thing, and then we sort of started rolling. Our first one in Canada, I believe, was this bad boy here, the Victoria Oaken Gin from Victoria Spirits. So I think that was the very first one that sort of kicked off the market. But now with 14, I have 14 different barrel-aged gins from 14 different distilleries. I'm just floored at how much I have to taste today. But for your viewing pleasure, I am willing to do so. The beautiful thing with barrel-aged gins, again, it's like with some Canadian whiskies and some other things, we don't have any rules. So at the end of the day, we can do whatever we want. And the beautiful thing with that is that we can age them whatever we want. And the first thing, most of these are going to be bourbon barrel aged or whiskey barrel aged. But the first one we're tasting today is a very special one. It's the Resurrection Rosé Gin from Resurrection in Vancouver. Brian and David Wolowidnik are really world-class bartenders who decided to open a distillery, and they're doing absolutely gangster stuff over at Resurrection. This one here is aged for 6 months in Cab Sav barrels. So let's kick this bad boy off really, really well. This is bottle number 331 of 350. So I was really lucky that I had a friend over. I think it was my Raven. She was over in Vancouver, and she picked me up a bottle, which is just awesome. Oh. So the thing is, you have to put a good gin in a barrel. Good gin in, good gin out. If you think that you're going to put a shitty gin into a barrel and it's going to come out good, you're missing the point of barrel-aged gins. The cool thing is this is a gin forward, but on the nose, you get this very robust red wine sweetness that's kind of intriguing. Oh, not expected at all. Oh, the gin is very, almost, I don't want to say sweet, but lemongrass and grapefruit. And very bright, a very bright gin. And then that red wine has just like come together and made this beautiful mouthfeel and texture. Bright citrusy tones, piney juniper. It is, oh, I'm glad I tasted this. Is the first time I've tasted this. I think I've got 3 or 4 things in this that I haven't tasted before. So for you folks, it's good to see my surprise. And for me, it's good to taste these things. But that is a fantastic start to this tasting. 14 gins, I'm going to pace myself. It might be a long episode purely because of that. I can't be banging 14 gins. I remember doing the fruit brandy episode, and I know that at the end of that I was not in a good place. But I'm pacing. So what I've done is I started off with that one as a nice palate tester. Nice, get you started. Then I'm sort of going from lighter to heavier sort of barrel-aged gins, because we've got some really heavy bad boys in this end. But we've got some really nice light ones. This one is an exclusive. It's coming in a couple of weeks. It's the Seaside Barrel Aged Seaside Gin. Seaside Gin from Sheringham just got World's Best Contemporary Gin. The World's Best Contemporary Gin is in Souk. Sounds like an oxymoron, but it isn't. Absolutely delightful. Oh, straight off the hot thing, I smell pine forest. And the thing with oak is you're going to get a lot more of that sort of pine foresty sort of smell come through, because sometimes the oak brings that through as well. Straight off the nose, I smelled it as soon as I poured it. Oh yeah, classic Seaside, bright, piney. But then on the back of that, you get that sort of like old wooden ship. That sounds like Ron Burgundy really badly. I'm sorry, but like old wooden, old cut wood. Oh wow, the oak has just like lifted it up lifted up the sherry ham really, really nicely. Gives it a really good texture and mouthfeel and body. Really builds it up. Still bright, but then the oak comes through as like as a buddy, not as a like overbearing, which is always got to be careful with the oak in gins, because sometimes it can be overbearing and like off-putting. But that comes through as like hand in hand, like buddies walking down a beach. I'm waxing very poetic today. So next up is another one I haven't tasted yet. This is the Steelhead gin, barrel aged. I don't think they numbered this. They numbered this one? No, they didn't. But they only made a couple of 100 bottles of this for their anniversary. Again, another one I'm tasting for the very first time. Oop, shouldn't have done that. Let's try that again. Now, I already love Steelhead stuff. You've heard me say, hey, you know what? I love all BC spirits. Everything has its place. There's some that I love a little bit more. Some that I enjoy working with. I shouldn't even say that I love working with all of them. Ooh. You have to remember, like, when wood gets added to gin, it does take away certain flavors that are in the gin and add more flavors. And so this one, you get a beautiful cucumber on the nose, like fresh, like cut grass, rainwater. But then the oak just gives it this beautiful balance. Oh, yes. Okay, that's 3 out of 14, folks. Stick with me. Next up, let's do a classic. Yeah, let's do a classic. We're going to do the Long Table Barrel Aged Gin. So this is probably the second or third barrel aged gin that came out in BC. I feel like it's the second. Long Table in Vancouver. Funky hops, funky juniper on the nose. This one's more where the oak and the gin is trying to fight it out, and the gin comes through on the forward and then the oak comes through on the back, and then just sort of like dancing on your palate. So you get the classic Long Table gin, and then you get the finishes, the strong, clean. It's a very clean wood, not a musty wood. Just a very clean oak, matchsticky oak, very like that sort of paddle pop sticks. That's a good one. That's a classic. You can't go wrong. Victoria Oaken Gin, Long Table Barrel Aged Gin. 2 gins that have been barrel aged for longer than some of these distilleries have been around for, and a solid classic style. Next up, this one I'm looking forward to. This one is the Noteworthy Barrel Rested. This came out in super limited edition as well, like ridiculously limited edition. But Steve Lee is a barrel master. That's one thing you can say about Steve Lee. He's doing single malt whiskey out there. He's waiting for it to age properly. This is done in Canadian whiskey barrels. I'm going to give you a different flavor than bourbon barrels. For 1 year and 10 months. So the great thing with Steve Lee is that he knows his shit when it comes to wood. And he's making some wicked single malts that are just starting to trickle out now, which I'm really looking forward to taste. If you're watching this, Steve Lee, you know my address, you know where to get a hold of me if I want to do a single malt episode. But he really knows his barrels and knows how to utilize these barrels best they can. Ooh. Now, passion fruit. Am I smelling that right? I can't even tell. Very, very floral. Like, the Noteworthy's always been a very floral for a gin, but beautiful, bright, ripe passion fruit on the nose. And the beautiful thing is that super floral lavenders and rose petals and that sort of thing. But the wood is an understated flavor profile that isn't in your face. It just adds a different texture and a different taste and a different length to the gin. And that's fantastic. Thoroughly enjoying this. Now, when I say my toasting notes, folks, now I'm sure eventually one day when I start getting a few more than 50 views on YouTube that I'm going to get trolls saying that my taste notes are weird. Your taste notes are your taste notes. Whatever you feel is what you taste. Everybody's got different life experiences, different tastes, different flavor profiles. I grew up in Australia, so my flavor profiles, like, I get a lot of wines have a rubber pool liner, like above ground pool liner. I grew up with above ground pools. That's the way it was. So what are we gonna go? I think we're gonna go come back on the island now, and we're gonna go with char number 3 from Wayward Distilling. Biggity biggity boom. So Wayward's up in Courtney. They do some great stuff up there. All honey-based spirits. So we've talked about fruit spirits, we've talked about Merridale, we've talked about different distilleries, what they use as a base. 9 times out of 10 it's grain. Merridale does all fruit, which we're tasting up next. Wayward, for some crazy, weird, eccentrically awesome reason, Dave went with honey. And honey gives a different spirit because you're fermenting honey, it's a different base. So the Wayward goes into bourbon barrels, which they have a fair few up there, for 6 months. The honey spirit is a different flavored spirit you're ever going to taste. It's sweet and fruity without being cloyingly sweet. There's still some residual, like, nice sugar there without it covering your palate. The gin itself is a fantastic product. Putting it 6 months in wood has just given this, like, right in the back of your palate here, a little twang of oak, which is delightful. So we're going to stick on the island. We're getting through, we're almost halfway through. I'm happy with this. Good pace, good pace. We're going to go with the Cowichan Copper. So the Cowichan Copper Gin from Merridale is 47%, so a little higher in proof. And we've got one of these great glass corks. Now this is kind of cool. What they do is they make a fruit spirit. They rest it for 3 years in stainless steel before they make the gin. Takes the edges off, lets everything sort of oxidize down and makes a great flavor profile, and then they make a gin, which is just insane. So this is French oak that recently would have housed Cowichan Bay or Cowichan Valley red wine. So local wine, French oak, and then they empty it out and chuck this in there. I can't tell how long it is. And again, it's the same as the rosé gin from Resurrection. You get that automatic, like, I can smell Pinot Noir, a light red wine on the nose. And maybe it's subliminal. Maybe it's completely psychosomatic. But the sweetness of the fruit, a beautiful, like, floral sweetness of the fruit. You get the botanicals in the middle. You get this all-encompassing red wine finish that just sort of like melds this sort of different direction of flavor profile. There's not much color, as you can see. There's not as much color from this barrel as the Resurrection, but it's still there. It's still like a light underripe strawberry, and those sort of flavor profiles are just creeping through. Now this one, I don't think is available anymore. I can't find it on their website. It's the Arbutus Druid Oaken Gin. Now, Mike, if you watch this episode, because I'm going to tag you in this episode, please let me know if this is still available and if people can still get it. This is a bottle from a couple of years ago, so I thought I'd grab it out and give it a try. I'm not sure if they still do it. The guys at Arbutus are doing some insanely great stuff. Please go check out their website. Please contact them. We've tasted the birch liqueur. We've done the absinthe. We've done a whole bunch of stuff from them. The Amaro. Go look at their website. They've got lavender liqueur, which looks fantastic. I still haven't been able to track down some of that. But go to the website, check them out. Arbutus Distillery in Nanaimo. There's got to be some... I've got to find out where these barrels are from, because every time I smell something from Arbutus Distillery that's been in a barrel, it has a very specific nose on it. And it's a sort of like very... charred oak, and I've got to find out what barrels they're using up there. Classic empiric gin, straight on the palate, malt forward, botanicals in the back, and then just finishes with this lingering vanilla. I'm probably going to say a bourbon cask, vanilla and bourbon finish, like bourbon cask finish. That is it gives this really strong backbone that a couple of others didn't have in the same way, but maybe that's because it's balancing off that heavy malt that Empiric Gin has. Empiric Gin has a heavy malt forward, botanicals linked in with that, and then the barrels come in behind. So, we're going to step it up a notch now. We have 6 left, so we're over halfway. We're going to go for the original. The original barrel aged gin for BC, which is the Victoria Oaken. The guys out at Sydney have been doing a great job. If you haven't seen their Empress 1908, it really is their their figurehead, their star in the sky that has really catapulted them to worldwide success. Is the Empress 1908 gin. It's got pea flower in it. I haven't tasted it on the show yet. I'm trying to figure out where it's going to fit. I might put it in the next flavored gins episode, which I'm working on. And straight away, just classic Victoria gin. Super piney, West Coast flavor profile on the nose with that backbone of gin. This one I made a ton of cocktails with over the years. Chai syrup, green tea bitters, that sort of thing. But this is just a classic. Super spicy. The gin is just somehow the barrel and the gin just work into this beautiful back of your palate sort of sweetness. I don't want to say brown sugar, but it's not white sugar sweetness. It's like this sort of caramelized sugar sort of taste in the back of your palate, which is really fantastic. This is the original. You have to give credit where credit's due. It's the original barrel aged gin for BC. All these guys have sort of taken after the fact that bartenders started using this and then started asking for more, and people wanted to change it up, like the Resurrection, Sheringham. All the barrels changed the gin slightly. It's really crazy. I always will give respect to the Victoria Oaken Gin because it's one of my favorites back in the day. So, this one is great. I'm really looking forward to tasting this one. These guys are out of Kimberley, which is up in the Rockies. You see their stuff sporadically around. Their Colossal Gin is another gin that I'm thinking about putting onto my flavored gin episode. I saw this. Whenever I go into a liquor store and I see something I don't have in the collection that I might put into an episode, I always buy it. It's the Forester Single Malt Aged Gin from Bohemian. Packaging is epic. Literally no information on the website. Please, BC Spirits, please, BC Distilleries, give me more information so I can put it on my website and use it in my episodes. For the love of God. But this one, there is literally no information for this one in any way, shape, or form. Little to none. So we're just going to give it a taste. It's the first time I've tasted this one, so I'm really looking forward to it. I like any distillery who's making a go and really being successful at making a go of it. In BC, I want to back it as much as possible. Bohemian's no different. They are doing these crazy little things that they sell out in Kimberley, out of the door, out of the distillery, and you really see their stuff outside of there. That does not disappoint. Oh my god, I gotta find out how old this is. It tastes like it's been in a barrel for a little bit longer than some of these other ones. But there's a caramelized vanilla tone to it, like almost like a vanilla custard pie. With all the botanicals of juniper and everything else in the front. And so, this is very interesting, like vanilla custard pie and botanicals and gin forward. If you're going to do a gin Martinez, hit up this one. Okay, I'm going to say this may have been the third barrel-aged gin in BC. Might have been one of the OGs as well as Oaken. This is from Odd Society. So Odd Society Spirits, the Wallflower Oaken Gin. I love this one. The Oaken Gin is several months in whiskey oak. Again, the guys over at Odd Society really know their whiskey, so know what oak does to whiskey. So they're just applying what they know to gin. And a lot of these guys are now starting to do like true taste, like tasting barrel samples and going, okay, that's good to go. But it's only been 4 months. Doesn't matter. It's good to go. That's what I want. This one's super deep. Now the gin is super strong on the front. This beautiful floral soapiness of the Wallflower, which is atypical of Wallflower. This is sort of flipped where you get the barrel in the front, and then dries your palate out. Then you get this beautiful like floral lavender soapiness that you get from the gin, from the Wallflower gin, in the back of the palate, and it just rolls down the back of your throat. So you start with the dryness of the barrel, then you get the sweetness of the floralness of the gin, and it just goes down the back of your throat. This is another OG. Go out and find it. My best example of using some of the rest of gins, depending on the depth of the age, utilize them the way that you would utilize a rye whiskey. So if you're going to do a old fashioned, try the Oaken Gin from Victoria Spirits or the Forester, or this one, a little bit deeper, can stand alone on its own. Some of the lighter ones that we've tasted, try it with a vermouth Manhattan style. Give that sort of a go, even though it is an Oaken Gin and it is a martini, but that's what I'm sort of leaning with that one. Next up, we have two New Toms, Old Toms. Old Tom was traditionally it sort of sat in between where Geneva sits and where London Dry sits. It's a sweetened botanical gin. It's really hard to describe and nail down in exact style. It's usually a sweetened style gin. Now the story goes is that when they started shipping Old Tom to the New World, to the US, they would put them in Irish whiskey barrels, and by the time they got there, the sugar would reduce down a little bit, and when I say reduce, not in flavour, just like sort of dissipate into the wood, and it would add oaken flavour. So you'd have this sort of like oaken sweet sort of gin. The first one I'm going to give it a go is the DeVine New Tom. As you can see, playing on the Old Tom cat sort of look. These are the guys, DeVine up and Zanich. Zanich. I say it with a Z apparently. My wife always complains that I say it with a Z instead of an S. Yeah, you get that sweetness on the nose. Now when I say sweet, I kind of mean fruity. I don't mean like sugar sweet, unless I say sugar sweet obviously. But sweet can be floral and fruity as well. Sweet as sugar gives you a very cloying finish, like that sort of like eating candy sort of finish on your tongue. And this is no different. The residual natural sweetness of this product, put into the barrel, or just got a little kick of sarsaparilla and licorice in there. The barrel just sort of takes the edge off the sweetness, still gives you that mouthfeel and texture, but then gives you a nice round palette of wood to finish it off. So next up, my lovely wife was in Vancouver this week, so she popped by the Liberty Distillery on Granville Island. If you haven't been, go check it out. Liberty Distillery. Whoa, is that light too much? There we go. Liberty Distillery in on Granville Island. Fantastic lady distiller. Fantastic products. Amazing tasting room. Go check out the tasting room just for that. Great little bar. I think they found the bar in a hotel that was getting knocked down from 1895. Hadn't been used since Prohibition time. It's just crazy stories. Go check it out. Their Endeavour New Tom. Same sort of thing as the New Tom from DeVine. Slightly different way, wood forward. Oh, but the dry herbs. I'm not sure if that's from the oak. It's French oak, but just a mouthful, like walking into a Chinese herb shop. Like tons and tons of that dry woody herb, and I'm sure that wood sort of coming from those herbs are playing from the gin into the wood. But then it finishes nice and sweet and fruity, beautiful finish. Oh, spicy. Another one to try out is an old fashioned or in a Manhattan martini sort of realm. Oh, that's fantastic. So we're down to the last one. So I'm looking forward to this one. As you can see, I've already partaked in this one a little bit. This one's not going to be a surprise for you folks. This is a bit of a unicorn. Deep Cove, along with the guys from Bohemian, don't have huge amount of distribution. So when you find their stuff, you're like, ooh, gotta get that. This one, the Barrel Aged Akvavit from Deep Cove, is a must-have. 1 year in American oak. Now, There is a couple of barrel-aged Akvavits. There's one from Long Table. I wasn't able to get that one. I know that the guys at Sheringham are working on one as well, which I'm excited about. Obviously, you know my love for the Sheringham Akvavit is my baby. So that one's in a barrel as well. That one's going to a Red 5 whiskey barrel that they just emptied out. So fingers crossed, next 6 months you'll see a barrel-aged Akvavit from Sheringham. So this is the barrel-aged Akvavit. Now, why did I put Akvavit with gin? So, gin, typically, like let's put it into a little box, juniper forward, aromatic spirit. Akvavit is a dill and caraway forward aromatic spirit. Absinthe, if you really want to get technical, absinthe is anise forward aromatic spirit. They are all technically in the same class, even though I put absinthe off to a little bit different. But Akvavit and gin are best friends, but different parts of Europe. And so I love barrel-aged gins. I love barrel-aged Akvavits. Why not? So that's why I sort of clicked this one in. I've had this bottle for about 6 months now. Straight on the nose. Dill caraway mixed with French oak. American oak. So lots of vanillas and caramels and that sort of thing. Now the story behind barrel-aged Akvavit is that bananas. Just got like ripe, like banana candies. Bananas. I'm going to say this may be a JD barrel. I'm going to put my money down this. Anybody from Deep Cove watching this episode, please let me know. If this is a JD barrel, a Jack Daniels barrel, please let me know, because I love when I find Jack Daniels barrel, because I can always taste ripe banana candies. And I like that flavor profile. So barrel-aged Akvavits is as prevalent as it is with barrel-aged gin, with the story about going to the New World. So what would happen is the Vikings would throw, obviously barrels are the best vessel to move things in, would throw Akvavit into a barrel, put it on the ships, go pillaging, and then come back. Whatever Akvavit was left in the barrels would be used as a celebration. And so there's a couple of well-known barrel-aged Akvavits out there. The most well-known barrel-aged Akvavit is probably Linni, which means lion in Norwegian, basically. And they still put their Akvavit into barrels, onto a ship. They cross the equator twice, and then they bottle it. Now, they try to figure out a million times to the way of Sunday to try and figure out a way that they can barrel age it, getting the same flavor profiles, without putting it on a freaking ship. They haven't figured it out yet. And I've read a lot of case studies about it, and I think it's going to be on a ship for the rest of, like, at least my life. But barrel-aged Akvavit means something very special. And in Iceland, they love new things, and around Christmas time, they release the barrel-aged Brennivin. But this is a fantastic little number. If you can find it, please go out and find it. I think Spinnakers and Vic West have it. If not, call Deep Cove and ask them where to get it from. So, one of the bigger tastings I've done. 14 barrel-aged gins and an Akvavit. 14 barrel-aged gins and an Akvavit. All very, very different. Standouts for me personally: Resurrection Rosé Gin. Boys, you're killing it over there. I hope you like this video, because I think you've done a fantastic job on this. The lighter style ones: the Noteworthy Char number 3, the Sheringham, the Stillhead, all lighter style. Then we start getting the deeper ones. Mike from Arbutus, if you're watching this video, please comment and tell me whether or not the barrel-aged gin is still available. The Copper Gin from Merridale. Then we get into the deeper ones. The Bohemian Single Malt, huge mouthfeel. Odd Society is probably the biggest one we have on the panel today. The OG, thank you very much for all the inspiration. Liberty and the DeVine New Tom, slightly sweeter barrel-aged styles, so use those how you like. And then, of course, the Deep Cove, the unicorn that I found, and I had to get. I've heard about this product for 2 years, and I didn't get a bottle till like 3 or 4 or 5 months ago. So like, that's how much of a white unicorn it is, or white whale, white unicorn. Let's just smash them together. White unicorn. But folks, thank you very much for your support. Please subscribe to the podcast, all the videos, whichever medium you're watching on. I hope you're enjoying these. I am having an absolute blast doing all this. It's one of my favorite things every weekend to sit down and do some episodes of BC Spirits and just showcase what we have available in BC. It is such a massive passion project for me. I just believe in it so much. And I hope that you're starting to see how much stuff we have in BC and how much fun this is. Go out and buy some of the stuff. If you're supporting local farmers, support local distilleries, keep local businesses in business. Thank you very much. Have a good week. I'm going to see you next week, I'm sure. But until then, drink wise.